More than 40 leaders from around Europe are in Prague for the first meeting of the new European political community. Now, this is an EU initiative that brings together EU leaders with countries beyond the bloc's borders, including Britain, Turkey, Ukraine, Switzerland and Norway. And it takes place as Europe battles an energy crisis and economic turmoil that's been worsened by Russia's war in Ukraine. We'll hear from our correspondent in Prague in just a moment. First, this on this new political format.
This is where the European Union's leaders assemble when they meet in Brussels. The 27 seats at this table represent more than 450 million people in Europe. It's a club some neighbouring countries on the continent have been waiting decades to join. But the requirements to qualify for EU membership makes the process both long and slow. So when France's President Emmanuel Macron introduced the idea of the European political community, there were immediate concerns from some that it was somehow a second-tier substitute to EU membership.
Let's bring Europe together on the basis of its geography, on the basis of democratic values, with a desire to preserve the unity of our continent. And we also want to preserve the strength and ambition of our integration. Joining wouldn't mean in the future you couldn't join the European Union. And it also wouldn't be limited to those who have left the European Union.
The new European Political Community, or EPC, will be made up of 44 countries. These include the 27 EU member states, countries who don't want to be in the EU like Norway and Switzerland, those that do, and the one that recently left.
You've got to hand it to the EU's leadership for getting an RSVP from everybody that they invited to join the European political community. But there is still the feeling that the purpose of the format is far from clear. And with so many nations gathered at the table, some of them friends and some of them foes, the skeptics are doubtful about what the EPC can accomplish and whether it will be anything more than just another talk shop.
This is about diplomacy in a different route. This is about making sure we keep our neighbours and our enemies close and making sure we speak to them on a regular basis. And people will genuinely feel, is it possible to have a conversation of this nature with that kind of difference and that kind of difference, a difference in ideology? And I think the only good thing about this is making sure we keep diplomatic channels open.
The EU Council President Charles Michel will lead the discussions at the first European Political Community meeting in Prague. There won't be a formal declaration issued after the summit, but should this first one go down well, the aim would be for the leaders to gather once or twice a year.
Let's join DW's Brussels Bureau Chief, Alexandra von Namen, who is in Prague for that meeting. Welcome, Alexandra. So help us understand what this European political community is. Is it EU light or EU XXL?
Well, none of the above. At least that is what European officials have been telling us, and that they are at pain to point out that the EU is just facilitating this event, that it is not a EU-driven process. It's more about leaders coming together to discuss common interests and issues that matter to them. But of course, you can ask, why do you need another platform like that? We already have structures like that. For instance, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And this is quite a risky thing to hold an event like that, because you risk alienating some states, for instance, those in the Western Balkans who have been waiting for decades to join the European Union. And they fear now that this event, this community, could be a consolation prize for them. Of course, as mentioned in the report, that our other countries, they don't have any aspirations to join the Union. The UK left the European Union, and they are also very cautious. They do not like this title, European Community. And still, we have to say that the fact that more than 40 leaders will be here today is very telling. It's showing that there is a huge interest in such a platform.
So, given all those question marks and the huge interest, what does today's summit actually hope to achieve?
Well, actually, the goal here is to have this event in the first place. As one diplomat put it, it's about bringing leaders on equal footing to foster a political dialogue. And of course, when we see what challenges the continent is facing, it is important. There is a war raging in Ukraine, a war that has an impact on almost every aspect of our lives. So the fact that despite Vladimir Putin's attempts to exploit divisions on the continent, the fact that we have all that leaders here today is a very symbolic gesture.
Alexandra von Naumann in Prague, thank you.